Welcome to another episode of She Unleashed. She Unleashed is, of course, for you, the corporate woman who needs to find a way in corporate. She wants to pivot, she wants to grow up the ladder. Or you're an entrepreneur, you're looking to do things, great things outside, or you're in corporate, but you intend to go out in future and you're trying to find the balance and see how you can prepare your path and prepare to pivot externally. Today we have an amazing topic, and it is one topic that I think we make a lot of mistakes on, me personally included in that. The topic today is called Your Corporate Brand is Not Your Personal Brand. And we have an amazing speaker who speaks on this. She's written books, she's a coach, she coaches leadership women, and she is full of content when it comes to these things and the lessons that we've all learned from this. So today we have Monique Russell who's joining me quickly, and we have had an amazing speaker. Like I said, she is a coach, she's an emotional intelligence expert, she coaches women, she also is an author of a book that is exciting, brand new baby. Monique, tell us a little bit about your book.
Oh my God, first of all, I'm just excited to be here on your show. And my book is called Intentional Motherhood. Who said it would be easy? Because, yeah, who said it would be easy, right? But really, it's a leadership book. It allows us as mothers who are working moms to parent and lead from love, not fear. It walks us through the aspect that it's not about age or biology. It's really about identity. It's about that mindset that we take on. So it's loaded with content, and I can't wait to share more.
Amazing. I know that was off the cuff, but I needed you to share the joy because I'm so excited. I'm always excited about women doing multiple things and having time to write. I marvel at any woman that can do that. So, congratulations on your new book, and I
Thank
wish you
you.
every success in it.
Thank you so much.
Monique, I reached out to you after you wrote an article on LinkedIn speaking specifically about this topic. What do you mean when you're saying your corporate brand is not your personal brand? And it just hit the core because it was a lesson that I would learn later in life after having had all the exciting titles. And later, when you hit a point where you have to take off all these titles and go out into the big world, you realize you have not developed your personal brand. What exactly do you mean on that article?
Oh my God, that's exactly what I mean. And right now is a time where every woman, every professional woman, I don't care what industry you're in, you have to take this into consideration. So I think that a lot of times women tend to, not even just women, but really people in general tend to hide behind the brand of their company. If you're working at Coca-Cola, you're working at, Equifax or Google, Amazon, you're an executive, you're doing well, you have made a name for yourself, people respect you. They respect you and they will give you that extra time of day because when you're calling them, you're calling from, I'm Fumza from Coca-Cola, I'm
Mhm.
Fumza from Equifax or Amazon. But a lot of times the women and those that are in leadership roles, they're so busy running the day to day, so focused on making sure that the goals of the organization is met that they fail to build their own brand outside of the organization. And so when you leave that company and you find yourself, like you said, in the big world outside, well, you don't really have that equity. You don't really have that big brand behind you. You're calling as Fumza the person, but you are the brand and you haven't taken time to share your stories, maybe to be on podcasts, maybe even just communicating and engaging on LinkedIn or networking. You haven't had that time. And so now you're starting over from ground zero after having so many years and so much success in your executive role. Well, your executive titling, that ain't going with you. That's not going
Mhm.
anywhere with you. And you could say, well, I was the executive, the former executive, former is the keyword. Nobody's trying to hear that. So what I want women in, especially women in leadership roles, to know is that you're doing an incredible job. I know you have a lot on your plate. You're busy. You don't have a lot of time, but you have to be very intentional and understand this whole hierarchy and structure that you are the corporate brand. You're the brand that's sitting at the top, not your corporate job. And
Mm-hmm.
so as you, the brand, your corporate job is one pillar.
Mm-hmm.
Your interest and your passion is one pillar. Your philanthropy is one pillar. Anything else that you have, your family is another pillar. So you are the brand at the top. You encompass everything about you. So when one pillar is shaky or one pillar moves away, like your corporate brand, we still know who you are. We still have all those other elements of who you are. And it gives you an opportunity to be able to connect with people in different ways outside of just that one pillar of work. Women tend to put the pillar of work at the top, and then they have nothing else there, and they focus all their energy there. And then when that moves, they crumble. And it's a hard climb uphill.
Now, tell me, Monique, what is the best way to communicate this personal brand? Because I think there's also a sort of a confusion in as far as saying, if I use LinkedIn, LinkedIn is probably going to be there's a confusion of whether is it my personal brand or is it my corporate brand, because most of the time we tend to use it for our corporate brand. When do we make that shift or that healthy shift that is still not communicating something that is conflicting to your corporate brand, or that is because there's also a sense of intimidation. If I can recall, there's a friend of mine that I had advised in her corporate role when she started experiencing difficulties in the corporate environment, where I then recommended to her that, look, grow your personal brand so that if anything falls apart, you have something to fall back on. And her concern was that then they will have something to work against me on because they will see what I'm doing on LinkedIn. What do you suggest? Where do we communicate this personal brand?
So for me, you're not separate. Your corporate brand and your personal brand is not separate. And again, if you look at the hierarchy of where we're putting it, let's be real. Some organizations, they do feel like they want to muzzle you and they want to restrict you in terms of how you show up on social media. Of course, there are some legitimate concerns, especially if you're in a regulatory industry or you're in a finance industry. You're not really at liberty to share even just your personal views, things that don't have anything to do, because it can be misconstrued that something can impact your actual company. So I understand, you have to think about the industry, think about the climate, and really put all those things into consideration. But in general, our world is changing and businesses are changing. Gone are the days where you see people who are in jobs for 20 and 30 years. People are moving, they're moving around. And so you have to be concerned about this. If I were in that situation, I would say, let's say on LinkedIn, for example, adding your commentary, adding your insights to conversations that are already going on is a great way to insert yourself into conversations, to be seen, to be visible, to be relevant, not just in the topic of your expertise, but in other areas that are passionate to you. You could also take the approach of curiosity, because there's 700 million, billion, whatever, million people on LinkedIn, and less than 1% of those people are creating content. So there are a lot of people that are observing. There are a lot of people that are just watching. You may not even have to put a comment or interaction that states your opinion. You can ask a question. You can be curious about something that has already been posted, and you're still now making yourself visible into the ongoing conversation. So there are different ways that you can insert yourself, or you can begin to share your thoughts or even things that you like or comment on. But I am of the belief that the fear that we are holding as women leaders, that fear is blocking us. It's holding us from achieving our true goals and desires. If we're afraid that they're going to have something to go off of and we don't do what we should do to protect ourselves and give ourselves more opportunity, then who's the winner? Nobody you're not winning. You're losing on every angle. You're losing in that corporate role. You're losing outside of that corporate role. And so there's a monopoly on everything that you're doing, not just now, but it's also in the future. So that's where I say step into emotional intelligence, step into self-awareness, understanding your gifts, become an investigative reporter of yourself. You have to know every single thing about yourself. And that is a fear. A lot of times we put the fear on ourselves. We tell ourselves no. Well, if I do this, they're going to do that. They're going to do this, and then that's going to happen. We are all the way down the road in some scenario that may not even be true because of something that may have happened in the past, and we're bringing that into our current situation, or for whatever other reason. And so we have to take time to really understand what's driving my decision, what's driving my fear, how do I know it's true? What's the worst that could happen? I cannot fail. At the end of the day, I can't fail. The only thing that can happen is I can learn from this experience. So what's the lesson in it?
Absolutely. And we are coming to a place where we are, I mean, it's a phase in life where women are in corporate, but they are also curious about what is out there. What could I do that is in alignment with my purpose? There's a lot of questions. This time has given us reflection time where we think, is this it? Is this all? I could have died in this phase, but maybe I have not even explored what I'm here to do. What happens, Monique, when the two are completely diverse? Because sometimes it becomes a bit scary to introduce a different aspect of your personality. Meanwhile, it's a brand that you would want to develop in future. An example is, I think we had a question of a lady that is in a regulatory environment, and in inside her is also an artist, and she says there's a perception that an artist is playful. How do I bring out this so that there is not a confusion? So someone who's reading this is not confused and saying, who is Pumza all of a sudden? How do we do this tactfully and cleverly so that the messaging is getting there about, all these aspects of Pumza?
Oh my God, I love it so much. So we are multi-passionate beings. We are multi-passionate, multi-interest beings. And the beautiful thing about where we are in this phase is that this phase of what our world is experiencing right now is actually open to us exploring these avenues. If we looked maybe at the traditionalist view, boomers view, maybe several years ago, the environment, the economic wars, the recessions, the downturns, the scandals, those environments of what was happening in the world were not conducive to allowing us to be free with exploring purpose and multi-passionate interests. Those were tough conditions where, coming out of those environments, you just want to focus on one thing, be very clear. I'm going to do this one path and that's it. But right now, our world is evolving and the environment is allowing. And right now, it's like, if you have just one interest, like you're setting yourself up to fail. Like, we have to have multiple interests. And so bringing out these aspects, like you said, very tactfully, is an environment, it's the space where we can do this without so much recourse, because everyone's trying to find it. Pivot has become the new word of the day. Reset has become the new word of the day. And so the environment, one, is allowing us to do this. And then two, you want to identify where you want to express those different aspects of yourself. So, there's an environment for everything. There's a place for everything. And you can bring out who you are in different avenues with different goals, going into yourself, learning more about those aspects, getting into a community. I traveled recently, and I will tell you, when I was in front of the water, there was a pier. There was a pier that walked out, a good bit into the ocean, and it was broad daylight. And I went to the top of the pier, and I was by myself, and I stopped, and I was like, that's too scary for me. So I came back, and then I waited for one of my colleagues, and I was like, I wanted to go out to the pier, but walk all the way out in the ocean, but I was too scared. So she said, I'll walk with you. And so we went and we walked out. We came back the next night. one of my other colleagues, she wanted to go and see what was happening on the other end by the restaurant, but it was dark. And so I said, I'll walk with you out onto that pier. And we walked, and I was scared, but I was being brave for her. I was like, don't be scared. Don't be scared. I was being brave for her. So we walked out, we walked back. And then the next day, it was like 5:30 in the morning. I was doing my walk, and I walked on that pier by myself all the way out into the middle of that place in the ocean. The water was deep. I looked around, I came back, and I used this example to say, when we are in community, when we are connected to others, we are able to face our fears in a stronger way. We're able to lend space for others to accomplish or conquer their own fears. But a lot of times as women leaders, especially executive women, you have gone up that ladder. You've worked so hard. It gets very lonely. There are only a handful, if you have a handful of people that you can really be yourself with and really be open and honest with. And so we have to get into community and get into environments where it is safe for us to practice sharing our fears and failing, if you will.
And I think that's absolutely at the core of all of this. So if you have grown up the ladder where the definition of your personal brand has been corporate, it almost was defined for you. So it almost gets scary now to experiment and explore once you're at the highest level. How do you recommend that women go about if they've never done the exercise of personal branding? And all of a sudden now they have to experiment and find out all these nice things. And how do we, how do we articulate now this Pumza that is an artist? And Pumza now is 60 or 58, and she has to rebrand herself because in future she's looking at those board appointments. She's looking at other things that she does post corporate.
Oh my God. So I'd say getting a coach. We want to have someone who is skilled in listening and facilitating the thinking process. Someone who can actually hold that space so that when the fear come up, we can actually look at it and we can really explore how deep the fear is. Where is it coming from? We can plan accordingly. Get a coach. Coaching is one of the things that I recommend, like wholeheartedly. It changed my life. It transformed many of my clients' life. So I'll say start with that coaching process and be gentle with yourself. Know that everything is not going to happen overnight, but you'll be able to start to make progress. And then I would say, learn to identify your story. So in that coaching process, you also want to have someone who is able to help you extract those experiences and extract those stories so that you get the best stories that position you well for those management opportunities or those other experiences. You just don't want to have that same bland, boring, okay, I was the former executive for 20 years. Okay, so what? Like, what else? What else is there? Like, what can you bring? How can your skill set, diverse skill set, bring value? You're an artist. What does that mean? That means that you have creativity, you have innovation. Businesses are closing, they're shutting down left, right, and center because they're lacking innovation. You have a skill in your passion area that helps to help that organization think strategically, have foresight and decision making. Another aspect you can tap into is the fact that we are now so much more global. There's a need for cultural competency. There's a need for communication. There's so many gaps, not just generational gaps, cultural gaps. This is the big thing. And so now here comes the artist who's also a business-minded executive, right? Which is rare. So you already have a differentiating point right there. So now how can we align these gifts and passions and talents to move the business forward and to move our people forward? It's all about people. I don't know if you've seen the campaign now, Quit in Public, on social media, where people are quitting their jobs, people are losing, they're leaving in mass exodus because they want to have more connection, more belonging. They want to feel appreciated. So if you can find a way to position your experiences in the past coupled with your story, and you make that relevant, we all have stories. We have
Yeah.
multiple parts of our
Yeah.
stories, but being able to identify which parts of my story connect to the relevancy of where we are in society, locally and as a whole. That's what I would suggest any woman executive, any business leader, any new manager who wants to position themselves effectively for the future.
And it's actually a question I wanted to come to of saying that also looking at the intersection we're at as women, that this is the time for the women. How do we use this time and the leverage for coming out as a personal brand, but coming out strongly in ways that we never thought would come out as? Because I think there were always fears. We projected ourselves with caution. You still wanted to be contained and so on. How important is it to really paint out this personal brand that speaks your truth, especially for the time and the season that we're in? And I think you touched on it briefly in your answer just now.
Yeah, this is the time, and you're gonna make me start screaming and jumping around the place. I'm so
Go for it.
excited. This is what
Go
I
for it.
this is what I this is what I say. I say this is the time.
Go for
Listen, if
it.
if you are not taking advantage of this time right now,
Mhm.
what are you waiting for? There's never been an opportune time like this right now for women leaders, for Black women, for diaspora women. It's never been a time right now. And yes, I know that you're scared. I know that it's daunting. I know that there's so much at stake. And that's why I talk about the power of the community, because there's so much more that can be facilitated faster when you know you're not alone. You can do your things individually, one-on-one, but you can also have that power of that community, and not just any community, the right community for you. Because a lot of times I see women, they go into these groups and these organizations, and it's really not a good fit. At some point in your life, in the earlier phase, I always say, the one size fits all approach is fine. But when you're in that second, third phase, you want a custom fit. You want someone who can understand what you've been through, who can understand where you're trying to go, and who can understand your fears, and not just hear your fears and say, well, you shouldn't feel like that, Fumza. You shouldn't feel like that. Not someone who is dismissing that, but who's able to acknowledge it, but also challenge you to move forward. Because now is the time. I tell women, you have to use your voice. We're using our voice, not just in the business perspective, but we're using our voice in our homes, with our children, with our partners, with our parents. We're using our voice, and it's really, I feel, a time of liberation. So it's something I'm happy about. I'm excited about, and I know that the journey is not one that's overnight. So we're moving from tactical stuff. A lot of times women leaders, that's what we do. We know how to put the face on, and we hit the tactical stuff.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? We get that. But it's that emotional intelligence stuff, learning about myself, learning about my weaknesses, learning about my fears, sitting down and actually journaling and activating those things. It's not just easy as just sitting down with a piece of paper. You're bringing things up to the surface, and then you have to be able to navigate those emotions so that you channel them to accomplish your goals. So it's a process, but it's doable. It's doable with the right guide and the right community.
And you're raising something very important, Monique, because sometimes when you are defining the personal brand, you're bringing out certain things that are probably not on the surface as yet. But you are looking at Pumza and saying, Pumza is the global leader. You're not even global there. But how much work does the actual personal branding and putting the peg out there actually inspires you to head towards what you have set as a target?
So what do you mean? Let me make sure I'm understanding the question correctly. Can you say it again?
So when we're saying we're defining Pumza is a speaker as it stands today. And she has an aspiration of being a global speaker. She's not yet a global speaker. And yet when she puts her peg on the ground, she would put that leading global speaker, whether she's had one speaking act of, speaking maybe in a different country and so on. But how much of that does actually help you to live up to what you are aspiring and setting as a target for yourself?
Oh my gosh. Listen, you are a global speaker because hello, like we're borderless, number one, right? And so being able to see it, being
Mm-hmm.
able to visualize it is absolutely essential. But we have to visualize the right goal, visualize the right thing, because if we're visualizing something that is not the right goal for us, when we get there, we're going to say, oh, that didn't work and it's not the right thing. And it's just, no, it's, mm-mm. So making sure that we're visualizing that right goal is incredible. Visualization and affirmations is something that I firmly believe in so much that I created my own CD, 100 affirmations for
Wow.
increased confidence. And I journal, I do it daily. It's an ongoing practice. And I will tell you today, nobody gave me this title of communications expert and coach and all this stuff. Nobody gave it to me. No organization gave it to me. I gave it to myself. I saw it for myself. I gave it to myself. I worked hard. I got results. And don't you know, this is how I'm introduced all over the world. So it has to start somewhere. Everything happens twice, first in the mind and then in reality,
Absolutely.
right? So
Absolutely.
that's where it
Absolutely.
starts.
If there can be any take home for women today, it's exactly that, Monique, because we are fearful of setting the bar high because we are scared of what? Of failure. But we also don't see the other side to it, that once you set the bar high, you actually put the accountability with yourself to actually work hard towards that something. Because I'm sure when you put it out there, communication expert, you had to live up to it. You made sure that you get exposed to all the material that can help you in becoming that communication expert. It's something that actually it pulls you towards what that aspiration has been.
And I will tell, can I tell you something?
Yeah.
One of my coaches actually helped me to do that. And he said, especially for women, you'll never see a woman put expert by her name because it's too huge, it's too big. First of all, men are sometimes challenged with it too. And you'll hear a lot of people say, I don't call myself an expert. I don't call myself an expert. And so he challenged me and I did it. And the rest is history. But was I afraid? Yes. Do I get afraid? Yes. Do I sometimes set my bar, which my bar is, I think is high, and to someone else it's low? Yeah. In fact, I was having a call before we got on this conversation, and I was sharing some additional goals, and that person said, I think that's a little bit low. And I was like, really? And so, this is the beauty of sharing and getting in community, because you may have a bar for yourself, but
Mm,
because your exposure is
mm.
limited, when you get around other people and you have a collective knowledge share, you can now expand even greater. But had I not even started with that, if I was waiting for something to drop in my lap, I would never even have that expansive conversation.
Mhm. Monique, you are such an insightful person, and I really would want our listeners to have at least a bit of a piece of you, especially because you do live coaching. I mean, the nice thing about COVID is it's allowed us to break across borders. So anyone who's in South Africa wants to get in touch with Monique, they can have access to Monique and have the help of building this amazing personal brand. Because sometimes when you do it alone, you do it with fear and you're so restricted and you don't see what actually is lying under the surface, that you actually are an artist. You're an artist that is in the business world, and that is unique. It takes someone to actually dig those
Yes.
aspects out of you. So how do you find you when the ladies want to reach out to you? How do you find you?
Oh my God. So I'm on LinkedIn every week. So you
Mhm,
can get me on LinkedIn, Monique Russell. Don't hit follow, hit connect. Or you
mhm,
could go to my website,
mhm.
clearcommunicationsolutions.com. Or you can send an email to my team at leadership@clearcommunicationsolutions.com, and it'll come right over. So there are
Awesome.
multiple ways. I love helping women leaders, global women leaders. I have a group program, Rock the Mic Global, and that's very small, it's intimate. And so reach out to me, let's have a conversation and see where we want to go from there.
Okay, I think before we leave you, you spoke something very important about affirmations, daily affirmations. What inspired these daily affirmations, and how consistent are you with them? Because I have a way of starting. I always start and somehow it just fizzles off. How do you keep the consistency going on these affirmations?
It is my life, number one. So anyone who wants the CD, the audio file, if you go to my website, clairecommunicationsolutions.com, and you put your email in, you can download the audio file, the 100 affirmations. And so you can just play it. It's 15 minutes. You can play it if you're walking, driving, if you don't have the energy to do it yourself or create your own, but it's a way of a life for me. So
Mhm.
that's one way you can begin. Another is that I have my vision board. I have things that I see all around me every day. So
Uh-huh.
it's planting into my subconscious. So this is just a part of who I am. It's
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
something that I have to do, but
Uh-huh.
it's who I'm being.
Absolutely. Monique, it was so re energizing to talk to you. And I'm sure we're going to have a second round of this talk because you are just that re energizer. And I know I am a fan, of course, because I always watch. I look at the things that you tackle. I mean, you tackle hardcore issues. You don't mince your words. That was the first thing I said to you. I said, I like your message because I like your message in that it's truthful, it's authentic, it's to the point, and it's brutal. It's no there's no airy fairy. You say it like it is. It's either a person gets it or they don't, and you move on. So I really appreciate you and really thank you so much for coming to the show. I look forward to the interchange. I'm sure a lot of women will reach out to you from ours, and I'm sure we'll do greater things in future together. Thank you so much for honoring me.
Likewise, Famza, thank you so much for reaching out. This is a divine connection. I know it, a divine appointment. So I'm looking forward to what we create together.
Awesome. There you have it, our listeners. It does not come as concise as this. There's affirmations that you got now. It's something that you can access from Monique. She's a giver like that. She has it right there. She did say that she is passionate about helping women. She is sharing insights every week. So there you have it. Your corporate brand is not your personal brand. I hope you've learned something today. Thank you.